Alright, so I'm going to tell you a bedtime story, and at the end of it, provided it goes well, you're going to be asleep. And I mean, maybe that's a bit optimistic, but we'll see how it goes, yeah? How about that? So lay down, laying down is probably a good idea. Okay, this story is called The Three Little Pigs, and you're probably going, yeah, I've heard that. Everyone's heard that. Tell me a new story. Well, don't be so sure. It's like there's a lot more going on in these old stories than we know. And that's actually why we all know them. And a lot of them are old, like seriously old. Our oldest stories actually originated from before the written word. And back then, something like half the population couldn't write a single word and half the population couldn't read. But does that mean we didn't have stories? No. Of course not, no. It means that the stories we knew had to be passed down verbally. So I'd say that lays, what would you call it, the conceptual scaffolding that we can buttress ourselves against as we unpack the Three Little Pigs. Yeah. Okay, so, actually, here's one more thing we have to cover before we can read it with anything approximating understanding. It turns out you can trace the Three Little Pigs far back into our past. Like seriously far. Which means it had to be memorable, doesn't it? It means that everything propagandistic in it was lost out of necessity. That's true of all of our oldest stories, and it's actually why they tend to be so bloody interesting. Because, here you can test it. No, seriously. Go take a copy of Twilight and sit there and read it, cover to cover. And then try to tell Twilight as a bedtime story, just from memory, and you'll see how well that works out for you. You'll stumble over the first page, and that kid'll be done, man. So, that's what's so interesting about the Three Little Pigs. It's the exact opposite. It's like, do we remember it? Yes. Can you easily explain it, at least ostensibly, to a child? Yes. It must have been something like, over time, all the constituent elements that form the monolithic progenitor of the story were chipped away until what you're left with is everything conceptually necessary to define a story about three adolescent pigs. It's actually the process of continual improvement from which all meaning from the story is generated. And you take that and repeat that story to your kid, and he repeats that 10 times, and then his kids repeat that 10 more times, and it's like, yes, that's what I want to tell my kids. Okay, right, here we go. Once upon a time, there was an old sow with 3 little pigs, and as she had not enough to keep them, she sent them out to seek their fortune. Okay, there you can see a mother pig and 3 little pigs, and, they're all gathered around her, and she's not looking too happy about it, and she's sort of towering over them, and so off they go. Well, once upon a time, that's a phrase that concerns the reality the author wants us to inhabit. And the reality is defined by our pre-existing a priori axiomatic interpretive structures. And, are you asleep? Aha, gotcha.